The strange truth about identity: can you ever stay the same? Who are you really? It's such a simple question on the surface, but the more you think about it, the more complicated it becomes. Let's try this. Imagine introducing yourself to a stranger. You might start with your name, where you're from, or what you do. But are those things really who you are? If you changed your name tomorrow, quit your job, and moved to a new country, would you still be the same person? And if not, then what defines you? Is it something deeper, your beliefs, your memories, your body, or is it something even more intangible? This question of identity has fascinated humanity for thousands of years. And for good reason. It's central to how we understand ourselves and our place in the world. Philosophers like Socrates, Descartes, and Heraclitus all grappled with the nature of the self. Heraclitus, for example, famously said, "You cannot step into the same river twice." Why? Because the river is always changing. But here's the twist: you're changing too. The person who steps into the river is not the same as the one who stepped in a moment before. So, if you're constantly changing, can you ever truly stay the same? Let's break this down. Many of us define ourselves by our memories. Think about it: your memories form the story of your life. They explain how you got here, why you are the way you are, and what matters to you. But here's the catch: your memories aren't as reliable as you think. Psychologists have shown that our memories are more like a scrapbook than a recording. We pick and choose which moments to keep, embellish details, and even add things that never happened. If your memories change over time, does that mean your identity changes too? But maybe your identity isn't just in your memories. Maybe it's in your body. After all, your physical presence, the way you look, the sound of your voice, is often what others use to recognize you. But here's a mind-blowing fact: every 7 to 10 years, nearly every cell in your body is replaced. The physical you of a decade ago no longer exists. So if your body is constantly renewing itself, can it really be the source of your identity? And then there's the question of your mind. Your thoughts and emotions feel personal and constant, but they too are always in flux. Think back to a time when you were absolutely convinced of something, a belief or a feeling you thought would never change. Chances are, if enough time has passed, that conviction has softened or even disappeared. So, if your mind is always changing, what part of you is stable? Here's where things get even more complicated. Some philosophers, like John Locke, argued that identity is tied to continuity of consciousness. In other words, as long as you see yourself as the same person over time, that's enough to maintain your identity. But does that really hold up? What happens if you lose your memory? People with amnesia often describe feeling disconnected from their past selves. If you lose access to the memories that define you, are you still you?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Pause here for a moment and ask yourself this: if you woke up tomorrow with no memories, no name, and no idea who you were, would you still feel like you? And if not, does that mean your identity is just a collection of stories you tell yourself? This question of identity isn't just philosophical, it's deeply practical. It shapes how we navigate life. For example, think about forgiveness. If someone wronged you years ago but has since changed, are they still the same person who hurt you? Should they still be held accountable? And what about you? If you've grown and changed since a mistake you made, are you still defined by that past action? These aren't easy questions, but they force us to confront the fluid nature of identity. At the same time, there's something comforting about this fluidity. It means you're not stuck. You're not the same person you were 5 years ago, and you don't have to be the same person 5 years from now. Every day you have the chance to rewrite your story, to grow, to become. But this also raises another profound question. If you're always changing, is there any part of you that's truly constant? Some traditions, like Buddhism, argue that there isn't, that the self is an illusion, a construct we create to make sense of our experiences. Other traditions, like those in Western philosophy, suggest there might be a deeper, unchanging essence, a soul or core self that exists beyond the physical and mental changes. So what do you think? Is there a real you beneath all the change? Or is your identity something that's constantly evolving, like a river flowing endlessly toward the sea? The fluid self, how change shapes who you really are. Let's dig even deeper. If we're constantly changing our bodies, our memories, our beliefs, then how do we make sense of who we are? Are we nothing more than a collection of fleeting moments, or is there something enduring beneath it all? To answer this, we need to explore not just what identity is, but how it evolves over time. What if the real truth about identity isn't found in staying the same, but in embracing change? Imagine your life as a canvas. When you were born, it was blank. Over time, every experience, every decision, and every relationship adds a brushstroke. Some are bold, defining your life's direction. Others are subtle, barely noticeable, but still part of the bigger picture. If you're always adding to this canvas, is there ever a point when it's finished? Or is your identity always a work in progress? This idea isn't just poetic, it's philosophical. Aristotle believed that human beings are defined by their potential. In his view, your identity isn't fixed, it's tied to who you're becoming. He used the metaphor of an acorn and an oak tree. But the acorn isn't an oak tree yet, but its essence is to grow into one. Similarly, your identity is less about who you are right now and more about who you're striving to be. But this brings us to a tough question: how much control do we have over who we become? On one hand, our choices shape our identity. Every decision we make, big or small, reflects the kind of person we want to be. But on the other hand, we're influenced by forces outside our control: our upbringing, culture, genetics, and even random chance. How much of you is truly yours? Let's make this personal. Think back to a pivotal moment in your life, a choice or event that changed everything. Maybe it was a career decision, a relationship, or even a moment of failure. Did you consciously choose who you became after that moment, or did circumstances decide for you? And if your identity is shaped by events you can't control, how much of it is truly authentic? Philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre argued that we create our own identity through our actions. For Sartre, existence precedes essence, meaning you're not born with a predetermined self, you create it through what you do. This idea is liberating but also terrifying. It means you're responsible for defining who you are. But it also means there's no blueprint, no guidebook. You're the artist of your life, and the canvas is yours to paint. Yet even as we create ourselves, we're shaped by our relationships with others. Think about how much of your identity is tied to the roles you play: child, friend, partner, parent, colleague. Who are you without those roles? And who do you become when they change? For example, if you lose a job or a relationship ends, does that part of your identity disappear? Or does it transform into something new? This tension between self-creation and external influence is what makes identity so complex. It's not static, it's dynamic. And perhaps that's the point. Maybe the truth about identity is that it's not about staying the same, it's about how we navigate the constant flow of change. Consider this: if we resist change, we risk stagnation. Imagine a river that stops flowing, it becomes a stagnant pool, no longer vibrant or alive. The same is true for us. Change, though often uncomfortable, is what keeps us growing. It challenges us, stretches us, and pushes us to become more than we were before. But how do we embrace change without losing ourselves in the process? One way is to focus on your values, the principles that guide your actions, no matter what changes around you. Values like honesty, compassion, and resilience can serve as a kind of anchor, helping you stay grounded even as everything else shifts. Ask yourself, what are the values that define you, and are your actions aligned with those values? Another way to navigate change is to see it as an opportunity for growth. Instead of clinging to who you were, ask yourself, who do I want to be next? This mindset shifts your focus from fear of loss to excitement for possibility. It's not about erasing your past, it's about building on it. Let's circle back to the question we started with: can you ever stay the same? The answer, it seems, is both no and yes. No, because the essence of life is changed. Every experience, every choice, and every moment reshapes who you are. But yes, in the sense that you have the power to decide what kind of change you embrace. You can't stop the river from flowing, but you can choose how you navigate its currents. So here's a challenge: the next time you find yourself resisting change, pause and reflect. What's really at stake? Are you afraid of losing something? Or are you afraid of becoming something new? And what if that new version of you is exactly who you're meant to be? The paradox of identity, how change reveals who you truly are. As we approach the heart of the question, whether we can ever truly stay the same, it becomes clear that identity isn't as fixed or straightforward as we might wish. Instead, it's wrapped in a paradox. The more we change, the closer we get to uncovering who we really are. It's as if identity isn't about resisting change, but embracing it as a process of discovery. So let's explore this idea: how does change, instead of erasing our identity, actually reveal it? Think about it this way: when life challenges us, it forces us to adapt. These moments of transformation, whether joyful or painful, often feel like disruptions to who we are. But are they? Or are they simply stripping away what's unnecessary, uncovering something truer beneath the surface? For example, imagine losing something you once thought defined you: a relationship, a career, or even a belief. At first, it feels like a piece of your identity has been torn away, but over time you might realize that what remains is more authentic, more you. This idea is echoed in many philosophical and spiritual traditions. In Buddhism, the concept of anatta, or no self, suggests that clinging to a fixed identity causes suffering. Instead, liberation comes from realizing that the self is fluid and ever-changing. In a way, letting go of who you think you are allows you to become who you're meant to be. But that's easier said than done, isn't it? How do we let go of the parts of our identity that no longer serve us without feeling like we're losing ourselves? Here's a thought experiment. Imagine you could step outside of yourself and observe your life as a third party. What parts of your identity would you see as essential? And which parts would seem more like costumes, temporary roles you've played but no longer need? What would you let go of to make room for something new? This brings us to a powerful insight: change doesn't destroy identity, it refines it. Just as a sculptor chips away at marble to reveal the figure within, life's changes carve away what is unnecessary, leaving behind something more essential. But here's the catch: you are both the sculptor and the marble. Every decision you make shapes who you become. So, what does this mean for your life right now? It means that every challenge, every triumph, and even every failure is an opportunity to discover something about yourself. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this teaching me about who I am?" This shift in perspective turns change from something to fear into something to embrace. Let's end with a question to carry forward. If identity is a journey, not a destination, then who are you becoming right now? And what can you do today to align with that becoming, not by clinging to who you were, but by stepping boldly into who you could be? Becoming the river, how to embrace the truth about identity. We've journeyed through the questions of memory, change, and the self, and now we arrive at the heart of it all. If identity isn't static, if it's always shifting like a river, how do we live with that truth? How do we find meaning and direction in a world where even who we are feels uncertain? The answer lies not in resisting the flow of change, but in learning to become the river itself, dynamic, adaptable, and deeply connected to the present. Let's start with the fear we often have about change, the fear of losing ourselves. It's a natural response. We want to hold on to the parts of our identity that feel safe, familiar, and constant. But here's the paradox: by clinging too tightly to a fixed idea of who we are, we limit ourselves. Think about it. How much of your stress comes from trying to force your life to fit into an outdated version of yourself? What if, instead of fighting the current, you allowed yourself to evolve? Philosophers like Nietzsche embraced this idea of becoming. He spoke of the Übermensch, or overman, as an individual who continuously redefines themselves, creating their own values and meaning. For Nietzsche, identity wasn't something given, it was something you actively built, over and over again. This is a powerful idea. It means that who you are isn't set in stone, it's something you have the freedom to shape. But freedom, as we know, comes with responsibility. If you're the one sculpting your identity, then every choice you make matters. You can't blame your past, your circumstances, or even other people for who you are. This isn't an easy truth to accept, but it's a liberating one. It means you have the power to reinvent yourself at any moment. So, ask yourself, what choices are you making today? Are they aligned with the person you want to become? Here's where we bring it all together. If identity is fluid, then the key to living authentically is to embrace change with purpose. This doesn't mean you abandon your core values or let go of everything familiar. Instead, it means staying open to growth, to learning, and to letting your experiences refine you. Imagine yourself as a tree. Your roots, the things that truly matter to you, stay grounded, while your branches stretch and adapt to the seasons. One way to do this is by practicing self-awareness. Take time to reflect on your experiences and ask, what parts of me feel authentic? What parts no longer serve me? This kind of introspection isn't just philosophical, it's practical. It helps you make decisions that are in harmony with your evolving self, and the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Another way to embrace change is to focus on the present moment. Too often, we get stuck in the past, replaying old stories about who we were, or we fixate on the future, worrying about who we'll become. But the truth is, identity happens here and now. The choices you make in this moment are what define you, not your past, not your plans, but this very instant. So what will you do with it? There's also something deeply empowering about recognizing that we're not alone in this journey. Just as rivers flow into one another, connecting to form vast networks, our identities are shaped by our relationships. Who you are isn't just about you, it's about the people you love, the communities you're part of, and the impact you have on others. This interconnectedness means that every step you take toward becoming your best self also uplifts those around you. Let's return to where we started. Can you ever stay the same? The answer is no, and that's the beauty of it. Life is movement, growth, and transformation. The you of yesterday is gone, and the you of tomorrow is waiting to be created. What remains is the journey, the process of becoming. So, let me leave you with this final question. If your identity is like a river, flowing and changing with time, how will you guide its course? Will you fight against the current, clinging to the past? Or will you embrace the flow, shaping it with intention, and becoming not just who you are, but who you're meant to be? The choice, as always, is yours.